Hi, I want to talk to you about the oldest online profession in the world, fraud. Fraud is an enormous problem for e-commerce merchants. Last year, $20 billion was lost to online fraud. And the real bad thing is, at present, it's growing at twice the rate of online commerce. 27% of all online orders were reviewed by a human being last year, and 200 million man days were wasted. Now, if you look at the growth in commerce at present, we're growing, we're doubling every 4 years. So we're left at the moment at 8% after the review were fraudulent. So eventually what's going to happen is we're going to run out of people to review these orders. I'm Pat Phelan, and I'm the co-founder of Trustev, and we're here to bring about an end to online fraud. Imagine doing business like this at the moment, not knowing who your customer was. It's crazy. What you have at the moment is you have a number of solutions which really aren't working. It's more commerce prevention. So mother's maiden name, please fill in an order for this, please fill in details for this $10 order. What was your cat's name? What was your first car? Worst of all, who was your kindergarten teacher? And every one of those steps is destroying conversions. It's just not working. So we decided to come here a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, Airbnb is brilliant, and we really love the guys. So we looked in Manhattan, met this guy called Brian, who I think is we later found out is one of your congressmen. He's got a beautiful apartment in 4th Street. We done a deal with him. The last notification we got from him was, would we mind paying him through Western Union? Obviously, alarm bells went off with us. I had Chris here run him through the database, and we found out that he lives in South Africa, and he sells mobile phones online in Ghana. So we got a different apartment, obviously. So this is what we really see, that the future of online internet commerce is about knowing who you're doing business with. And that's where Trustev comes in. We're a real-time online identity verification platform. We focus on using social fingerprinting, and we focus on letting you know who you're doing business with. Our platform uses social data as a primary. We add in behavioral data, transactional data. We give the merchant a score, and that score is all about authenticity. Knowing that the person that's buying from you is the person that they say they are. I'll just hand over to my co-founder, Chris Kennedy.
Thanks, Pat. So I'm Chris Kennedy, CTO and co-founder of Trustev. So Trustev integrates seamlessly with any website. As a merchant or as a customer goes through the website, it collects data about the customer's device, their behavior, and the order they're doing. So when the customer checks out, they'd be asked to sign in with a social network. If they do have a social network account, Trustev can augment the data we've already collected with our social fingerprinting technology. When you sign in with Facebook, for example, Trustev looks at the profile information, it looks at the posts on the account, and it reports back to the merchant whether or not the customer is somebody that they can trust. So we verify the identity of the customer back to the merchant, and using the data that we have referenced, we pre-populate the online checkout form with the customer's data, so their name, their address, and their email, making the online transaction a smoother, easier, and a more secure experience for the customer. So what does it actually do when you check out? So in our example, Trustev takes in the Facebook account and looks at the profile information. So we can see in this particular instance, we're dealing with Chris Kennedy, who's 28 years old, and there's really awful hair in this photo anyway. But we can't rely on this information alone. We need some way to verify whether or not the profile is real. So what we do is we look at the posts and we try and identify patterns in those posts. We identify whether or not the content is user-generated legitimate content. And we can also identify suspicious patterns, which would indicate that the profile might be fraudulent. So that allows us to validate that the profile is a real person. We then also identify who the person actually is. And how we do this is we look at data in the profile that can be mapped back to the real world. So we look at check-ins, we look at location tags and photos and videos. And based on that, we can determine not only the country that the user is from, but also the city and even the street. We compare all the socially graphed information back to the IP address, delivery address, the billing address, the device fingerprint, the behavior of the customer, and the order history. And combining all this information together, we can report back to the customer or to the merchant a score of 0 to 100, which indicates whether or not the customer is actually who they say they are. Yeah. So for developers, we have our JavaScript module, which can be combined with our Magento plugin and also our REST-based API.
It's a very simple enterprise model. As you can see, it's per transaction. You just pay for what you use. There's no annual contracts. There's no monthly minions. It's simple. It's really like Stripe for fraud. We have a number of milestones. We've just completed our seed round. Telefonica have just invested. We're a team of 9 based in Cork and Dublin in Ireland. And today we launch our Magento plugin. And one more thing, the data we are collecting at present will allow us to completely eliminate fraud this year. We're Trustev, and we're here to eliminate fraud. Thank you.
Great job. Judges?
This is obviously a very important area as more and more fraudulent activities happen out there. We're a seed investor in Permium, so I'm kind of a believer in this space. Can you talk a little bit more about like the Magento deal and relationship? Because obviously that's a great way for you guys to get customers. How easy is it for you to implement Trustev?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Magento plugin, I mean, as you know, when you're using Magento, it's simple. Install the Magento plugin into your site. But if you don't use Magento, we're also developing plugins for the likes of Shopify, Zencart, and Demandware. So we're really focusing on the top carts out there. If you're not using a standard kind of bespoke cart, then you can integrate using our API. So it's just a case of dropping in the JavaScript module, and there's 3 API calls to integrate our software.
So,
What's the, oh.
Question, when an online merchant has this in their shopping cart or as part of their shopping cart experience, what happens when your system identifies a fraudulent user? Is it automated to shut down the transaction and then notify all the other merchants in your network, or? We have
3 levels. On the first level, we obviously identify a real person and allow them to proceed to cart. We have a middle level where we flag. If you remember, I said there 27% of all online orders are reviewed. We take that review to 5%. So if you can imagine, if you have 100 people in your fraud department, you can now reduce it by 75%. And finally, anything that we see as suspicious, we will reject them, but we will reject them with a custom message set by the retailer. So maybe there's a problem with their card. They're told, hey, contact customer service. There's a problem with the transaction.
Is that shared across all the merchants that are using your system?
Yes. It's a fraud platform, so anyone who's joined with us shares the information.
What are you seeing as I mean, we have quite a few e-commerce companies.
Because they're worried about fraud. I mean, I'm trying to buy razors, I'm trying to buy Warby Parker glasses, and these guys, you know, want a market to open up.
Did you guys get word that we like shoes?
We were delighted when we heard of it. We honored the Irish today.
It's very cool. You don't force the user to use it. The merchant doesn't force the user to use it. It's a choice. Why would the user do it? Why would the user want to?
Especially the guy trying to cheat the site.
So generally, not using it is also an indicator, but we encourage the site owners to say to the user, hey, please check in to speed your process through the cart. So if you check in and you have your name and address in Facebook or any other social network that we're using, we pre-populate the cart, so you can imagine we accelerate the checkout process, becomes 1.5 clicks.
It's very beneficial on mobile, on tablets, where customers don't want to deal with excessive data entry. What we're seeing as well is that right now, maybe 5% of customers check out with a social identity, but it's predicted by the end of next year, the beginning of 2015, that number will increase to 50%.
Is there potential for consumer confusion that they're going to be posting what they're buying, sharing their purchases, and they say no?
No, we're not sharing. It's made clear in the terms.
I think what Scott's saying is that we A/B test this all the time on all of our sites, whether or not Facebook Connect works, and without incentivizing the user to do it, they won't do it. And even then, the fear of being spammed on their wall is high. And so the 5% is pretty high, actually. No, I'm not sure if it goes to 50%. How do you get over the fact that consumers just aren't going to connect with Facebook?
We see growth in the area constantly. That's a Gartner report that Chris just mentioned. and we're positive that social commerce is on a big growth push.
Any other questions? Okay. That's Trustev. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks.